Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah wa ba'd. Today we're going to cover the story of Prophet Ibrahim, also known in English as Prophet Abraham. And the reason why we're covering this specific prophet, can anybody tell me why? Why would we pick, out of all the prophets mentioned in the Quran, over 20, why specifically pick this prophet today? Yes. Because the story is related to Hajj. Good. And who can tell me what does that have to do with anything? Yes. It's almost the month of Dhul Hijjah. The month of Hajj is coming up, and therefore there's a direct connection between the story of Prophet Ibrahim and Hajj, to the pilgrimage to Mecca, and that time is coming. So Friday probably will be the first of the month of Dhul Hijjah, or it could be Saturday. We're going to find out on Thursday at about 10 a.m. Does anyone know why we're going to find out at 10 a.m. on Thursday? No. What does 10 a.m. have to do? Yes. Maghrib in Saudi. Thank you very much. Maghrib, sunset in Mecca is going to be 10 a.m. on Thursday in California. So they're going to announce based upon the sighting of the moon, and then we get that information on Thursday around 9 or 10 a.m., something like that. And we're going to find out when the time for Hajj is going to be. Okay, good. So Prophet Ibrahim's story is mentioned. Ibrahim, his two kids, and his grandson Yaqub is mentioned in the Quran in 198 verses. And in the Bible, it's mentioned in several chapters. The book of Genesis, chapters 11 through 35. There's also a lot of detail. And then you find some hadith statements of the Prophet, peace be upon him, which mention a small part of his story. And then you find another body of literature known as Israeliyat, or Jewish and Christian reports that are not part of the current Bible today, that talk about his story as well. So what's going to happen is, today I'm going to be presenting the story of Prophet Ibrahim directly from the Quran, with very little additional information outside of the Quran. Now, the reason why I'm telling you this is some of you probably watch some stories of the Prophet's cartoons. You know, who has watched some of those cartoons or something like that? Okay, so some of you have watched those, right? Some of them got some interesting accents, and they're foreign produced or they're dubbed or whatever it is. Some of you have read some of those books for kids. Some of you maybe actually read books written by Christians and are taught in like some Bible study class about some of the prophets. You couldn't find anything else, so you picked up that book. What I'm going to be teaching you today is almost 99% directly from the Quran. And anything that's not mentioned in the Quran, I'm not going to go into any of those other details. The reason why is because when it comes to Islam, Islam teaches us that our number 100% authentic source is the Quran. And then if there's authentic hadith, we accept that as well. But when it comes to taking stories from people who've had their scripture somewhat modified or changed or something like that, some aspects, historical, there's no problem if you take it. Some aspects, some parts of the story may sound a little weird and they sound strange. And it actually causes some skepticism in people. So if we take those things, and they're not even from the Quran, and then you start to have some weird confusions. Why did that happen? Or I don't understand this. This doesn't make sense to me. That's not even in the Quran. And if it's not in the Quran, then why should we allow it to bother us? Right? So that's my little methodology, which probably didn't need to happen for a children's class. But that was more for the adults. All right, so let's begin. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In ancient Mesopotamia, people used to worship idols. And an idol is like a statue. It could be a picture. It could be something else that people bow down to. People pray to. And there was a man by the name of Azar. He was one of those people who lived in this region, and he also used to worship idols. And some people say that he actually used to help make the idols and sell them to other people. But his son, Ibrahim, or Abraham, he realized at a very young age that idol worship was wrong. And he thought it was very strange. Ibrahim used to say, this is very strange. Why do people pray to these statues? These statues cannot answer their prayers. They can't even move. They can't even talk. So it doesn't make any sense that these people in my city are worshiping idols. This doesn't make any sense to them. Okay? I'm going to ask a few questions just to make sure everyone is paying attention. Okay? So, quick question. Which region of the world did Prophet Ibrahim live in? Quick hand, yes. Iraq. Okay. Which used to be called what in the past? Well, I can't hear you. It's called what? You said Baghdad? No, not Baghdad. I just mentioned it like about 30 seconds ago. Yeah, in the back. Go ahead. Huh? Babil. Okay. Did I mention Babil? No, I didn't. Okay. It's good, Babil. Okay. Babylonia. But there was another region that I mentioned the name of. Yes. Ancient Mesopotamia. Very good. How many of you have studied or heard the name Mesopotamia in your history class in school or something like that? Most people have. All right. It was known as a very important historical civilization. So this is where Prophet Ibrahim lived. How was Ibrahim different from other people in his city? Yes. He didn't worship idols. Why? Because he's Muslim. I need a better answer than that one. Can you give me a better one? Yeah, because they can't move, they can't talk, they don't have any power, they're just statues, so why worship? Good. All right. So Ibrahim asked his father, he said, "My dear father, why are you worshiping these idols? It doesn't make any sense." So what was his father's response? His father got mad. He didn't understand the issue. He didn't understand what the problem was. So then Ibrahim went to his people, the people living in that city, and he started talking to them and inviting them and telling them something's not right with what you're doing. So then he asked them questions. He said, "Do these idols listen to you when you call them? Can they harm you? Can they benefit you in any ways?" So he was trying to convince his people that it doesn't make sense to worship idols. What was their response? They said, "Well, no, but our ancestors used to worship them. But because our parents and our parents' parents and our parents' parents' parents used to worship them, that was a good enough answer for them." But was that a good enough answer for Ibrahim? No. So he responded. He said, "Do you guys even understand what you're doing? You know, you and your ancestors are wrong. And it's so clear, and you should stop doing this." Okay? Questions? What was the name of Ibrahim's father? For someone who has not answered yet. Yes. Go ahead. No, the one right behind you. Yes. Azar. Good. Let's see. What was Ibrahim's father doing wrong? Praying the statues. Good. And how did Ibrahim convince him to stop? How did he try to convince him to stop? Telling him it's the wrong thing. Very good. And how did his father respond? Somebody else. Yes. Okay, but we didn't get there yet. So right now, he got really mad, right? Okay, so that's an important lesson because sometimes when you tell people the right thing and you give them a good explanation, his explanation is good. What is people's response? Instead of responding back and saying, "Let me give you a good explanation back," instead the response is, they just get mad and they walk away. And you're going to see that. In life, sometimes you go and you're convincing someone about what is true and what is right, and you present everything in the nicest of ways. It makes complete sense, and the person just gets mad and walks away. That happens. This is exactly what happened. So Ibrahim comes up with an idea. And he came up with an idea and he said, "You know what? Maybe there's a way I can convince my people to realize that this is a mistake." So his plan was that he's going to go and he's going to break the idols. And he's going to show how helpless these idols really are. And then people will start waking up and realize there's a big mistake. But how can Ibrahim do that? People are always visiting the temple. The temple is like the masjid for the idols. So they're kept in like this giant building. And they would go all the time and they would be praying to them. So how is he going to do that? Because people will always see him. I'm asking rhetorical questions, by the way, so these are not questions yet. All right? So how is he going to be able to do that? So if they saw him doing that, then they'd probably kill him. So Ibrahim came up with the plan. So on the day of the special festival that the people used to have in Mesopotamia, everyone used to go out to celebrate. So Ibrahim's father came to him and asked him, aren't you coming with us? We're all going to the festival. Everyone's going out. Ibrahim responded and he said, I'm sick. Now, Ibrahim didn't want to lie, but there was no other way to accomplish this task of breaking the idols and saving his life at the same time. Because if they find out that Ibrahim is the one who broke the idols, he's dead. So Ibrahim, even though he said he's sick, he was very careful about what he said because he knew that lying is wrong, except in the most extreme circumstances. So he still used language that was literally true. So when he said he was sick, what he meant was, he meant, I'm sick of people praying to idols, right? So once the people finally left, he went into the temple of the idols, and he saw all these statues and idols in one room, and he spoke to them. He's like, hey idols, can you guys hear me? Why don't you respond? I'm talking to you. What's wrong with you people? So then he's like, look, people left food for you, because people used to come and put food in front of the idol, and they used to say the idol spiritually eats the food, and they would take the food and they would throw it away, because they said the idol already ate the food on the inside or something like that. So he's like, look, here's some food. Why don't you guys eat it? And what did the idol say? Nothing, because idols obviously are stones and they cannot talk back. So Ibrahim continued with his plan. He took out an axe and he went and he started breaking all the idols one by one, and then he left the biggest idol in the room and he put the axe next to the idol and he left. Questions? What did Ibrahim plan to do to convince his people to stop worshipping idols? These are easy questions, I know. Yes? Yeah. Somebody amplify that. He planned to break the idols. Very good. Why did Ibrahim pretend he was sick?
He wasn't pretending.
Jabber, you gotta raise your hand too, man. Yes. Very good. Okay, excellent. So you had a good comprehensive answer. I won't repeat the whole thing, but it's a very good answer. So now, based on that, does it mean it's okay to lie? So what if you copy Ibrahim and your parents make you vegetables and Brussels sprouts and broccoli, and you just don't feel like feel like having ice cream, but they're like, you got to eat these vegetables first, and you say, you know what? I'm sick. I can't eat these. I can't eat this dinner.
How does it make any sense?
Does that mean that, you know what, it's okay to do that as well? Is that a lesson we learned? So who can explain to me? Is that okay? And if not, why is it not okay? If Ibrahim did it, why can't we do it too? Because you're basically saying, I'm sick of these vegetables. You know, Prophet Ibrahim said, I'm sick of praying to these idols. I'm sick of this idol worship. You say, I'm sick of these vegetables. So what's the answer? Somebody else. Okay, go ahead. I can't repeat the question again. You gotta get that one down. You know?
Because he said he was sick because like this could like change if people actually make him from just like eating vegetables to get a farm use.
Okay, so one answer, that's part of it. So one answer is Prophet Ibrahim, this could change his people and make them stop worshipping idols versus eating vegetables, not gonna harm you. It's actually beneficial for you, right? Jabir, what's the second point?
Allah made Ibrahim.
In a life or death situation, it's a very different situation than you forgetting to do your homework or you being late somewhere and then you're coming up with some lie. Okay, and lastly, that's too easy a question. We'll skip there. All right. So the people came back after the festival and they went to the temple to pray, and they saw all the smashed idols. And how do you think they felt? They were furious. They were really mad. And they shouted, who did this to our gods? So there was somebody there. He mentioned something. He said, you know what? We remember that there was this young man named Ibrahim. He used to say bad things about our gods. It might have been him. So they called Ibrahim and they summoned him. And they said, did you do this to our gods? And Ibrahim responded and said, well, actually, look right over there. This big idol over there, he's the one who did it. Look, he's got the axe right next to him. He must have broken all the idols. See, just ask the idols, and they'll tell you that it was that guy. So the people knew that idols can't talk. So they responded, they said, you know idols can't speak. So Ibrahim found his opportunity. And he said, then why do you pray to them if you know they can't help anyone, they can't harm anyone, and they couldn't even defend themselves? That doesn't make any sense at all. So at that moment, people are already in shock at the idols, and Ibrahim caught them. So they started feeling ashamed for a moment. And right after the shame, instead of admitting the truth, their shame turned into anger. And they just got mad. And they said, we're going to get you. And this is what happens to a lot of people. That sometimes they start to see the truth for a moment, but they don't want to accept the truth. And even though it's very clear to them, right in front of them, they immediately adjust and they change one emotion to another, and then they're going to start getting upset or getting mad and thinking about something else. So the leaders among Ibrahim's people, they came and they had a meeting. And they discussed and said, what should we do to Ibrahim? He has humiliated our gods. We have to do something. So someone came up with an idea. And they said, you know what? We should burn him alive. Throw him into a fire and get revenge for our gods against Ibrahim. Everyone agreed. They said, this is a great plan. So they lit this huge fire and they threw him into the fire. Now normally, anybody is supposed to burn. He would die. It would be extremely painful. But Allah chose Ibrahim to be a prophet. And Allah helped Ibrahim, so He caused a miracle to happen. The fire, which is supposed to burn, instead became cool. It became safe for Ibrahim. So he was in the fire, and he was just relaxing. It's like sitting at the beach, and nothing was happening to him. He didn't get hurt at all, because Allah made a special miracle. See, Allah is the one who puts the ability to burn inside the fire. And He took away that ability, and the fire became like a nice air conditioner, like a nice fan. He was just sitting there relaxing, enjoying himself. Now the people were watching this, and the people were shocked. They couldn't believe it. All right, questions. How did the people react when they saw that their idols were destroyed? Somebody new who is not. Have you answered the question yet? Have you? You haven't? Go ahead. The what? They were angry. Okay, yes, they were angry. Good. Why did they think Ibrahim might have destroyed the idols? Yeah. One of you who has not answered yet. Behind. Yeah. Who has not answered yet? You've not answered yet? You have. Have you answered a question? You have not? Go ahead. You want to go? Cancel? I can't hear you. What was I can't repeat the question. It's my one rule I have. Go ahead, yeah. Yeah, so what bad things was he saying about the idols? When did he say bad things? They were all at the festival. So when did he say that? When people were worshipping the idols? So before the festival, right? Yeah, that's correct. Very good. All right. Who did Ibrahim blame for the broken idols? Who has not answered? You have not answered, right? Good. He blamed the big idol. Good. Why did he blame the big idol? Good. These are all easy questions. All right. Okay, here's a tougher question. How did Allah save Ibrahim? Somebody new? Somebody new? Yes. He what? He took the fire's ability to burn away. Okay. And the second question is why? Because he was a prophet. Okay, now I got your trick question follow-up. Would Allah allow a prophet to be killed? Ever? Never? So no prophet could ever die. So any prophet Allah chose, he walks around with like force field, invincible. No one can kill me. That's actually not true. Allah has allowed prophets to die, and some prophets have actually died. We'll cover that if you take my class on prophets, you'll cover that. So that's actually not the case. So if that's not the case, that Allah does not always guarantee that prophets will always be protected, then what could the reason have been to save Prophet Ibrahim? Like be successful in his mission? Okay, yes, very good. So it was a miracle for other people to see. So this was a miracle. This is the most important point. And two, maybe he was about to make, he was still making his case against the people and trying to convince them. Okay, very good. No, I don't like comments from the audience until the end, inshallah, until the end. All right. So once that door opens, trust me, 20 years of experience, it's not a good idea to open that door. All right, so next, sky worship. So Ibrahim's people not only worshipped idols, but they also prayed to the stars and the moon and the sun. So Ibrahim wanted to explain to them why this is wrong. So this doesn't make sense. You shouldn't be praying to any of these things. So one day, he said, let me try something else. Because they're praying to idols, but they're also praying to, the things in the sky, the planets and stuff like that. So he decided, let me teach them a lesson. So he went out at night, and he looked at one of the stars, and other people were around. And he said out loud in front of a group of people, he said, you know what? Maybe this star is my God. And he was just pretending, right? Just to make a point to people. So later on, the star, it went away. They couldn't see it anymore. And he's like, no, you know what? Actually, I changed my mind. That can't be my God because it's gone. Then later on, he went out later and the moon came out and the moon became visible. And he said, you know what? Maybe this moon must be my God. And then the moon, it set and it went away. So he goes, no, that can't be my God either. Then later on, he left and he came back and the sun rose. And when the sun was rising, he said, you know what? The sun must be my God because it's larger than everything else. So that's the way I'm going to be thinking. So he was pretending like he's going to go pray to the sun or something like that. Then later on, he said, you know what, guys? I thought about it. This sun is going to set as well. He said, this can't be my God. He said, only Allah is my Lord. Allah is alive. He's always alive. He never dies. He never goes away. None of these things can help me because they're weak and because they disappear and they go away. So Ibrahim knew that Allah was the Lord of the stars, the Lord of the moon, the Lord of the sun, and he was trying to teach a lesson to all these other people that they should not be worshiping things that they can see up in the sky. All right. There was a powerful king who ruled that region. He was a very cruel king. And he made people bow down in front of him whenever they would come into his presence. So the king heard about Ibrahim and what happened with the fire. And he heard that Ibrahim did not bow down to anybody. No idol, no person. So he got very angry. And he said, I'm going to call him and I'm going to make him bow down to me. So the king called Ibrahim. So when he came, he asked him, he said, Ibrahim, who do you pray to? Ibrahim said, I pray to Allah. So the king said, who is Allah? And the king said, or Ibrahim said, Allah is the one who gives life and causes death. So Ibrahim was trying to make the king understand that, listen, Allah can do what you cannot do because Allah gives life and Allah causes death. But the king responded, he said, I give life and I cause death too. So the king meant something else. The king had a bunch of people in his prison, in his dungeon. They're like being tortured and stuff. And he explained, you know what? I could call two of these prisoners, and one of them I could sentence him to death. They'll cut his head off with his head. He'll be dead. And I can give the other one mercy and say, you know what? You're released. You're free to go. So he will be removed. He'll be released. He's saying, see, I give life and I give death too. So why don't you worship? Why don't you pray to me too? Why don't you worship me? So Ibrahim knew that this king is being silly. Right? This is not a correct argument. So Ibrahim just could have said, if he wanted to, like, that's not what I meant. I meant only Allah can give life to something that is lifeless. Like, can you make a rock alive? Go ahead, take that rock and put life into it. Ibrahim could have said that. Ibrahim was more clever. Instead of arguing this point, he changed the argument and shifted to a completely different argument. And he said, okay, well, Allah makes the sun rise up from the east. Why don't you make it rise from the west? So the people around him, around the king, they were listening to, they were paying attention. And they knew that the king cannot do that. And there's no way he can somehow turn around and say, oh, I have the ability to do that too. He doesn't have the ability. There's no way he could twist around the meaning of that. The king couldn't come up with a good answer. So he was embarrassed in front of the people. Okay? So questions. Why did the king want to speak with Ibrahim? Okay. So he can bow down, okay? And also, one more reason. He heard something about Ibrahim. What about? That he won't worship idols and he won't pray to anyone else. Good. That's a long question. Okay, how about, yeah, this is an easy question. Okay, why didn't Ibrahim keep arguing with the king when he said that he gives life and death just like Allah? Why didn't he keep arguing? I'll take a repeat, people. If you've answered a question, you can answer a question again. You just answered one. I was going to give somebody else. Nobody else? Okay, let's see. I expected more hands on this one. All right, go ahead.
Because he knew that the point he was going to make was a smarter, more clever choice, and he just kept on arguing.
Good. Good, very good. You were going to add something to that or same thing? Something similar, okay. All right, good. So one day, later on, Ibrahim asked Allah, oh Allah, can you show me how you're going to bring the dead back to life? So Allah asked him, he said, do you doubt that I can do that? Are you having some doubts about my ability to bring the dead things back to life? Because we're all going to die. We're all going to come back to life. We're all going to be resurrected on the Day of Judgment. So Ibrahim was asking, before that happens, I would like to know, can you show me, like, how is that going to happen exactly? Like, can I get a demonstration? Allah said, are you doubting? And Ibrahim answered, he says, no, not at all. I just want to see it myself so that I can be even more sure about it. But sometimes you know something and you're sure about it, but you're like, but if I saw a little bit more detail, I'd be even more sure. So he's trying to get to a higher level of certainty. So Allah already knew what was in Ibrahim's heart, but he just wanted to teach Ibrahim there's a difference between asking a good question and asking a bad question. Not every question is asked in the right way. Ibrahim should have or could have asked this question in a different way so that Allah would not have to remind him, hey, what's going on? Are you having some doubts or something like that? Of course Allah knows. So Allah answered his request. So he told Ibrahim, he says, here's what's going to happen. You have to put some effort in. You're going to take 4 birds and you're going to train these birds to listen to you. Because, you can take most animals and you can train them. When you train them, now the animal knows you and it listens to you. So if you have a bird, you can train the bird that, when you call the bird, it comes to you. Some birds, you have like a parakeet or something you can like put on your shoulder. It'll walk around. And it won't do that with anyone unless you've trained it properly. So he told Ibrahim, take 4 birds and train these birds. And that when you call them, they're going to come to you. So he trained these birds and he got these birds to basically listen to him. Like anyone who spends a little bit of time can do that. So then he said that once the birds are trained, then Allah told him, now I want you to sacrifice the birds. You're going to cut them up into pieces and you're going to mix them together. Like, you have like kebabs, it's like mixed meat, and you like put on the skewer and all that. This is like ground, mixed up bird meat with all the birds mixed together. So then he says, now you're going to take a piece, a chunk from each of this ground, and you're going to put it on 4 different hills around you. So Ibrahim did exactly as Allah told him to do. So then Allah told him, now call the birds back to you with like a special whistle or something like, I can't whistle very well. So like call them somehow, all the birds are supposed to come back. Now they're dead. They've been cut up into pieces and they've been mixed together and they've been placed in different regions. So now he called all the birds back. All the pieces of the birds from each one came back together in some way. We can't even imagine what this was. This would make like an awesome, CGI, 3D film where like all of a sudden it comes back together and it's coming back to Ibrahim. He saw something like that and all of a sudden these birds started flying back to him in full form. And they came rushing back to Ibrahim. So he was shocked. And he saw the might and the power of Allah directly in front of his eyes. This was a miracle that he asked for, and Allah granted him. The first miracle saved Ibrahim in the fire, but it was a miracle for all the other people to see so that they might believe that Ibrahim is a prophet. This miracle was for only Ibrahim himself, so that he can increase in his faith and he can say, you know what, I was already sure, but now I'm even more sure. And he recognized and realized that it is so easy. He saw with his own eyes how easy it is for Allah to recreate something that He's created the first time, even if the parts are all scattered around. Because, normally, if you think about it, every time, if you heard the statement, practice makes perfect, right? The more times you do things, the easier and easier it becomes. So Allah is the one who made every single thing in this world. So if He made everything in the first place when there was nothing there, then if something dies and gets broken into pieces or whatever, is it more difficult to create something from scratch or to recreate it from existing parts that became a little bit broken or something? Which one's easier? The second one, right? Because you already have the prototype and you have the diagram and you have the experience. Again, this is in human terms, right? Allah, it's harder to make something from scratch, from zero, than it is to reassemble something that's already had been built in the first place. With the exceptions of humans not knowing what the scrambled pieces are and all that stuff. Leaving all that aside, the general principle applies. So, questions. What miracle did Ibrahim ask Allah to see? What miracle did he request? Like the same as. Gotta use chocolate next time. Okay, yes. To bring back the dead to life? To see him. Okay, good. Very good. Alright. What was Allah's response when Prophet Ibrahim asked that question? Yes. He said, do you still have faith? Yes, exactly. And how did Ibrahim explain his reasoning for his request? How did he explain? Did he say no? Did he say yes? So his heart could be at peace. So his heart wasn't at peace? You're right. This is exactly what the verse says. But what's the meaning and the reading behind the verse? Was his heart not at peace? It wasn't at peace. He's like, I'm not convinced. I'm not at peace until Allah shows me this. Can't be that. It's got to be something else. What was he looking for? Anybody else? Somebody help. Gotta raise your hand. All right, here. Huh? He wants a demonstration, but why does he need demonstration? Strengthen his faith, right? So meaning heart is at rest, meaning I'm going to strengthen my faith and I want to just make it stronger. Okay. Okay, here's a question. Why did Allah ask Ibrahim a question if Allah already knows everything? What was the question that Allah asked Ibrahim? Does anyone remember? Was there a question that Allah asked Ibrahim? Yes. Are you doubting, right? Do you have any doubts? That Allah asked Ibrahim that question. Why would Allah ask Ibrahim the question if Allah already knows everything? Back to you. I surveyed the whole audience. Back to you. You forgot. Somebody. Upstairs. Anyone? Yes. Because Allah loves to talk to His prophets. He just asked random questions? No. Little bit more. It was actually mentioned. I mentioned it in the story. You didn't raise your hand, but go ahead. Yes. To strengthen. So Allah asked him a question to strengthen his belief.
Yeah, just to strengthen his belief so he can be more stronger.
No, but that's not the question. So Allah asked Ibrahim, "Are you doubting?" Allah already knows if he's doubting or not. 'Cause Allah knows everything. Allah knows what's in his heart. So why ask him the question? What's the point of asking Ibrahim the question if Allah already knows whether he's doubting or he's not doubting? Yeah. Exactly. So he can teach him how to ask the question differently because he did not ask it in the best of ways. Good. So then Ibrahim tried to convince his father one last time. He went to his father and he said, "My dear father." Now imagine, his father's getting mad, his father's worshipping idols, his father's not being very nice to him at all. But Ibrahim is still speaking respectfully to his father. Ya abati. It's a beautiful way of saying, "My dear father." Don't pray to idols. Only pray to Allah. Ibrahim loved his father very much. Even though his father was doing very bad things, doing wrong things, natural to love your parents. So he still loved his father. But his father did not want to listen. So instead, his father threatened Ibrahim. And he said, "Don't make me hit you. Just leave me alone. Don't talk to me. I don't want to talk to you anymore. Boycott. And if you mess with me, I'm going to hit you." And we don't know what kind of hit, potentially he might even do. So he threatened him. He boycotted him. And he's like, just get out of my sight. I don't want to see you. Just leave me alone. Ibrahim was very patient with his father for a long time. Finally, he said, "Peace be with you." Salam, right? Peace be with you. I'm leaving. I'm going to leave this city and I'm going to go and I'm going to ask Allah for help and I'm going to go somewhere else. So Ibrahim left and he prayed to Allah. Ibrahim made a dua. He prayed to Allah and asked him, he said, "Oh Allah, forgive my father." He said, "Forgive my father. He has gone down the wrong path." And he said, "Oh Allah, it's going to be embarrassing for me to see my father being punished on the Day of Judgment. So don't do that. Don't punish him on the Day of Judgment." Now the reason why Ibrahim said that was because before he left, he had told his father, saying, "I'm going to pray to Allah that Allah does not punish you." But it was actually wrong for him to ask that. It was not a correct request of Ibrahim. He asked the wrong question. He had the wrong request. Because anyone who rejects Allah deserves to be punished. And Allah gets to decide that. So Allah told him, "Do not ask that from me. This request is not appropriate. You're not supposed to ask me that question." Ibrahim realized his mistake. And he asked Allah for forgiveness for asking for that request. Because it was not an appropriate request in the first place. All right. To Makkah, because time is cancel the questions for now. Everyone was mad at Ibrahim. So he left. Ibrahim wanted to go to a place where he could freely tell people to only worship Allah. So Allah told him first to go to the valley of Mecca with his wife. What was his wife's name? Anybody know? The one that he was going with. Not Sarah. Hajar. Okay? So Allah told him, you're going to go to the valley of Mecca and you're going to take your wife Hajar and your young son Ismail. Now, what was Mecca like at the time? There were no people. No one lived in Mecca. It was a barren valley. There were no animals. There were no trees. There was no water there. It was just empty. But Ibrahim did exactly what Allah told him to do, and he went there anyways. So after a while, he got there, and he left his wife, and he left his son all alone in a valley with nothing there, because Allah told him to. Because he's a prophet, so he had a command from Allah, and he knew that Allah had a plan. So soon, the family, wife and son, they ran out of water, and they started running out of food. So Hajar started looking around for anybody who's passing by. Maybe somebody can come and help them, because there's something called caravans. And a caravan is basically like people when they used to travel through the desert, even till today, they would use camels. And they would have like groups of people would travel together for safety. And they would have a lot of supplies on them. They would have food with them and water with them and everything. So they're usually crossing through the desert. So she's hoping that maybe there's some caravan passing through. She might see them. She might be able to signal them. And they're going to come over and maybe they can give her some food or help her in some way, or she could join them or whatever, because she's just there all alone by herself. So what did she do? She started walking around back and forth between these two hills in Mecca. One of the hills became nicknamed, because no one even lived in Mecca, so there was no names for the hills. But later on, one hill became nicknamed Safa, and the other one was called Marwa. So there was two hills, and she kept walking between the two hills because every time she went up to the hill, she could see further, while being on the hill, maybe somebody's there. And then she would walk to the other side, and she would even run a little bit. She would get to the other hill, and she'd be looking, is anybody there? Because she needed the help. So she was going back and forth between these two hills of Safa and Marwa, but she couldn't find anybody. So she kept praying. Can you two? Excuse me, Jabir, and guy next to, can you two please kind of keep your voice down? Thank you. All right. So she kept walking from the hill, Safa and Marwa, back and forth. She couldn't find anyone. So she kept praying to Allah for help. And she kept searching for any caravan that might be potentially passing by. But finally, when she got exhausted from walking and from running back and forth between these two hills, Allah caused a miracle to happen. Water started bubbling up from the ground, and it just kept on coming out, and now there was a spring coming out underneath the ground, and this water became known as the well of Zamzam. Who's ever tried Zamzam water before? Anyone? Tried it? Yes. So Zamzam water started at the time of Hajar, when she was in the valley of Makkah. And that water has continued to flow, even though millions of people have been drinking from it for thousands of years. It continues to flow. And it's some special characteristics in the water. But what ends up happening is, water is not going to be enough. They need food, they need people. So a tribe that was passing by, they detected that there was a source of water now nearby in the valley of Makkah. Because people in the desert, they're very good at detecting things. They can figure out where water is. You could tell there's either birds flying around, or there's something will detect water, and then the people will figure out there's got to be a water source over there. Let's go and investigate it. So a tribe eventually, very shortly afterwards, detected that there's a water source in Mecca. So they went to Mecca and they found, hey, there's a water source here, and there's like this woman, and there's a child. This is a great place. We're going to stay here. And they settled there. And that's how the city of Mecca was actually founded in the first place. So, sometime later, Ibrahim returned back to Mecca, and he visited his family. And he knew that Allah had taken care of them. So he had no doubt at all. I mean, he's already seen 2 miracles in his life, and he fully trusted Allah. So he knew that Allah had taken care of his family. So when he came back, he saw his wife, he saw his son. He was very happy. His son is growing up. He's healthy. He has good manners. So one night, Ibrahim had a dream, and he had a vision that Allah told him that he needs to sacrifice his son. So Ibrahim was a messenger of Allah. Ibrahim is a prophet. So this vision is a revelation from Allah. Otherwise, you're not supposed to act upon what you see in your dreams. But this is a special case because Prophet Ibrahim has been chosen by Allah. So he knew this is Allah giving him a sign. So Ibrahim wanted to do exactly what Allah wanted him to do. But he went and decided to first consult with his son. So he went to Ismail and he said, my son, I have seen in the vision that I must sacrifice you for Allah. This is what Allah wants me to do. What do you think about this idea? So Ismail responded, said, my father, do what Allah has told you to do. And I will be patient if Allah allows me to be patient. Meaning, I don't even know if I'm going to be able to be patient, but I trust in you. I believe in you. I know you're a prophet. I'm convinced that you are a real messenger of God, and I believe in you as well. And I believe that Allah has told you to do this. So he submitted himself as well. So Ibrahim went with his son, took him outside Mecca, a little bit outside Mecca, and he went to a place called Mina. And he brought a knife with him. And Allah was testing him. He says, does Ibrahim love Allah more? Or does Ibrahim love his son more? Because he loved his son very much, right? And this was, difficult for him. He only had one son at the time. He only had one child at the time. So Ibrahim decided, I'm going to do exactly what Allah wanted me to do. So he laid his son down on the ground. He put a knife next to his throat. And at that moment, Allah told him, stop. Ibrahim, you have passed the test. There was nothing else to do. Allah did not want Ismail to die. Allah just wanted to see if Ibrahim was willing to sacrifice what he loved the most for Allah. And he was. So Allah told Ibrahim instead, sacrifice a sheep instead, and give the meat to the poor. You can distribute it to some of the people. So Allah was very happy with Ibrahim, and He gave him a nickname. The nickname was, does anybody know what Prophet Ibrahim's nickname was besides Jabir? I know you know Jabir. Anyone besides Jabir know Ibrahim's nickname? No? Yes, he did say it earlier, about 27 minutes ago. Maybe 37 minutes ago. You know what's his name? Khalilullah. Who can tell me what that means? What does that mean? So we got the Arabic, but we don't know what it means. Oh, yes. You do know Khalil means friend, but you don't know what Khalilullah means. Well, you got it, because it means friend of Allah. Good job. All right. So it means friend of Allah, because he was doing everything that Allah asked him to do, including willing to sacrifice whatever he loved in this life. So Ibrahim left Mecca again for some time, and he came back again later one time, because he had another family as well. So he left and he came back again. This time, Allah told him to build a masjid, to build a mosque. Now there were many temples in the world, like the temple of the idols in, what was the region that Ibrahim lived in again? What was it called? Yes. Ancient Mesopotamia. Very good. So in ancient Mesopotamia, there were temples for idols. In other places, so many different regions of the world, there were temples for idols. But you don't have one giant place where everyone is just praying to one God. So Allah wanted that there should be one place, like a temple, where people only pray to one God. So they decided, Allah told them to build this building. And they started. So father and son started working together. They were carrying stones from the mountains around Mecca. Why didn't they just use wood? Because it would have been so much easier to just cut down the trees and just build the Kaaba from wood instead. Why did they do that? Yeah. Because there was no wood. Why wasn't there any wood? There's no trees, no plants inside Mecca. So there was mountains though. So they went and they started chiseling from the mountains, and they brought stones and they started building the Kaaba. While building, Ibrahim and Ismail, they started praying to Allah. They said, "Oh our Lord, accept this from us. You are the hearing and you are the seeing. Meaning you know what we're doing, and Allah, accept this work that we're doing that you asked us to do." So Allah accepted their effort, and Allah blessed the Kaaba. Millions of people have been praying to Allah at the Kaaba for thousands of years. So then Ibrahim he named his followers Muslims, because Muslim means someone who surrenders themselves to Allah. So this was the name of his followers, and he actually came up with that name himself. And then in a different language, but very similar to the Arabic word for Muslim. And then Allah also revealed some rules for the Muslims at that time to follow, and these were written down in little booklets that were given to Prophet Ibrahim, called the Suhuf. Last section. One day, some people came to visit Prophet Ibrahim, and he didn't recognize who they were. And nobody else around recognized these people, because if you live in a small little city, like a little town, everybody knows everybody. Nobody recognized who these people were. So this means that they were strangers that came from another land. So they came and they greeted him with salam, with peace. So he responded back with salam, peace as well. Ibrahim was very generous, because he was a good man. So he went and sacrificed the calf, and he roasted it, and he gave them like a really nice feast. And he presented the meal to them, because he was being good to his guests. Now people who've been traveling from a long ways away, they must have been tired. They must have been hungry. They've been traveling through the desert, all the way to Mecca. There's not that many cities around it. They're very far. So he noticed that these guests were not eating anything, and they wouldn't even eat all this delicious food that was in front of them. So Ibrahim became scared, and he thought something is not right with these people. Something is wrong with these people. Maybe they came to harm him. Maybe they came to steal his stuff or something like that. So they recognized that he was scared. So the guest responded, they said, "Don't be afraid. We do not eat food. That's why we're not eating. We have come, we're passing through your city. We have actually been sent to destroy the people of Lut." Lut was a family member of Ibrahim, and he was a prophet, and he was sent to another region. They were just passing by, and they said, "We are just stopping by to give you some information, but we're actually not here to harm you. We're actually going to take care of another city that's doing some really bad stuff. So these were angels in human form that Allah had sent. And they continued speaking. And they said, we're here to give you the good news that you're going to have another son, another child, and his name is going to be Ishaq. This one, first son was Ismail, this is going to be Ishaq. And he's going to be very knowledgeable. And he will have a son named Yaqub. And both of them will be prophets, just like you. Ibrahim's wife was there, and she was listening. So she gently slapped her face in surprise. And she's like, seriously? How can I have another child when I'm an old woman? And my husband, he's an old man. It's going to be very strange. That doesn't happen. Someone's so old and they have another child. The angels responded and they said, are you surprised about Allah's decision? Allah can do anything. Allah only does what is wise. So she realized this is a good thing and she was convinced. Right before Ibrahim passed away, before he died, he prayed to Allah. He said, my Lord, help me to pray regularly and help my children to also pray regularly. And then he made dua for all of the people and all of the Muslims, and he told his two sons, he said, my children, Allah has chosen the right way for you, so make sure you never die unless you're in a state of being a true Muslim. And that ends the story of Prophet Ibrahim. We got to call the adhan, inshallah. So, subhanakallahumma bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum.